It's been over a year now since I was diagnosed with Avoidant Personality Disorder. In that time, I've learned many lessons. And though I've yet to take most of those lessons to heart, gaining some appreciation for them has been necessary in getting me this far. I hope you can get something from these ideas as well. These are 4 things I've learned from Avoidant Personality Disorder. Some progress is better than no progress. This is a lesson I've had to learn over and over and over again. It's an idea that's easy to grasp intellectually, but hard to put into practice. We all know that if you stand in place, refusing to move, you'll never get to your destination, but this is often what we do. Perhaps we fear we won't make it even if we try. Perhaps we fear that we'll move in the wrong direction. Maybe we fear that the destination won't be worth the journey. While these fears are worth addressing, they ultimately have no bearing on the matter. Refusing to move guarantees you won't make it to your destination. If you're not sure of the direction, making any move can, at the very least, teach you which way not to go, and you may pick up surprising benefits along the way. The same goes for the destination not being quote-unquote worth the journey. The journey itself has value, and will likely give you tools that are transferable to the next one. It's also common to find that our destination wasn't the right one in the first place, but it's only through trial and error that this can be discovered. It's taken me almost a decade of missed opportunities to realize what refusing to move actually results in. It may allow us to avoid some of those things we're afraid of, but it ultimately keeps us in a place we're not meant to be. To be fair to myself, however, my fears weren't the only things holding me back. I also underestimated my ability to pursue my goals, and I was overly focused on the outcome rather than the process. After addressing my fears, getting some achievements under my belt, orienting myself to the process, and getting a clear view of what no progress actually looks like, I now believe that some progress is better than no progress. Celebrate your victories. All of us suffer from something called negativity bias. Our brains tend to weigh negative events more heavily than positive ones, and we tend to dwell on those negative events much longer. This negativity bias had dramatic benefits for our ancestors, who lived in more dangerous environments. When surrounded by threats, the person who was most likely to survive was the one who always assumed the worst when encountering the unknown. Most of us today, however, are not surrounded by such threats, and our negativity bias generally does more harm than good. If we're constantly looking for threats, we will always find threats, and will never feel secure. If we focus on the negatives, we will miss out on many of the joys that life has to offer. If we want to rewire our brains to feel more joy and security, it's important that we sit with our positive experiences. While negative experiences can imprint on our brains almost instantly, positive experiences generally need 10 or more seconds to imprint themselves. Simply having positive experiences, therefore, may not be enough to rewire our brains. If we quickly move past those experiences, our negativity bias will reassume control, and the positives will be forgotten. This is why it's important that you celebrate your victories. Avoided responsibilities weigh you down. We all have responsibilities, things that we are called to do, things that only we can do. We are given specific tools or capabilities that are suited for certain actions. Ideally, we use these tools as they're given and relinquish them when they're no longer needed. To do otherwise is to carry them with you into situations where they're superfluous. This can make for a heavy burden. Shortly after I was diagnosed, my therapist introduced me to the cycle of anxiety, which shows that avoiding things that make us anxious may give us some short-term relief, but ultimately ends up increasing our anxiety. Avoiding our responsibilities does not make them go away. Those responsibilities stay with us, and their anxieties end up compounding on each other. They also cloud our sense of what we actually need to be doing. It used to be virtually impossible for me to decide on any direction of action. This was in part due to an anxiety disorder, but I also believe it was caused by avoided responsibilities. I had a constant sense that I needed to be doing something, but I didn't know what. The energies given to me for certain purposes were instead directed to this or that random activity, or otherwise just sat in my system overwhelming me. While it may be the most challenging path in the short term, the only way to keep your burden light is to do what you're responsible for when you're responsible for it. The alternative is to let avoided responsibilities weigh you down. Don't take on responsibilities that aren't yours. Avoiding our own responsibilities isn't the only way we increase our burdens. We have a tendency to take the responsibilities of others onto ourselves as well. It's no wonder now why I used to feel so hopeless. I wasn't just unsure about my own responsibilities. I also made myself responsible for how others felt, how they thought about me, whether or not they were doing what they needed to be doing, and many other such matters. These are not things I have control over. It made sense for me to feel hopeless because these endeavors were hopeless. When we take others' responsibilities onto ourselves, we doom ourselves to failure, because only you can tend to your responsibilities. In addition to this, though, when taking on others' responsibilities, we take time and energy away from those things that we are truly responsible for, and we often lose sight of those actual responsibilities. The thing is, tending to our own responsibilities can be quite intimidating. This is why we often look elsewhere, trying either to avoid our responsibilities by doing something else, or trying to mitigate the unpleasant aspects of our responsibilities by also playing others' roles. Whatever benefits we may get from such strategies, however, they will ultimately weigh us down and alienate us from ourselves and those around us. If you want a lighter burden and more authentic connections, don't take on responsibilities that aren't yours.